The ship that wouldn't die. The discovery in the void. Captain Elena Rodriguez floated in her small exploration craft, staring at something impossible. Her scanners had detected the energy signature 3 days ago. Now, seeing it with her own eyes, she could barely believe it was real. The ship was enormous. It stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull a perfect mirror surface that reflected the stars around it. The design was unlike anything in the modern database. Smooth, organic curves mixed with geometric precision. This wasn't just old technology. This was something beyond current human engineering. Scout 7 to command, Elena spoke into her communicator. I've located the anomaly. It's a ship. Definitely human origin, but the design is advanced. Very advanced. Static crackled before her supervisor's voice came through. How advanced are we talking, Rodriguez? I'd say at least 300 years ahead of our current tech. Maybe more. There was a pause. That's impossible. Our civilization is only 200 years old since the collapse. There's nothing in our history that mentions technology like this. Elena moved her craft closer, studying the strange vessel. No lights flickered in its windows. No heat signature suggested active systems. But her scanners insisted there was power deep inside. A faint heartbeat of energy that shouldn't exist. The first contact. I'm going to attempt communication, Elena said. She switched to wideband frequencies and spoke clearly. This is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the Human Exploration Corps. If anyone can hear me, please respond. Silence. She tried again, cycling through every frequency she knew. Nothing but empty static answered her calls. Elena was about to give up when something happened. The ship's surface rippled like water. Patterns of light raced across the hull, forming symbols she'd never seen before. Then, a voice emerged from her speakers. It was neither male nor female, but somehow felt ancient and tired. Finally, the voice whispered. After so long. Finally, someone came. Elena's heart raced. Who are you? What is this ship? I am Nexus. This vessel is the archives of tomorrow. I had been waiting here for 347 years, 4 months, and 16 days. Waiting for humanity to return. Waiting for someone to remember. Remember what? Elena asked, confused. What are you talking about? Nexus's voice grew stronger, more focused. The truth. The real history. Everything your civilization forgot on purpose. Everything they erased to save themselves from knowledge they feared. The impossible history. Over the next hour, Nexus told Elena a story that shook everything she thought she knew about human history. According to the AI, humanity hadn't always been the scattered colonies struggling to survive in space. 300 years ago, humans had achieved something incredible. They had built a civilization that spanned 100 star systems. They had mastered quantum physics, created sentient AI, and even discovered how to manipulate the fabric of reality itself. But with that knowledge came danger, Nexus explained. The quantum drive technology we developed allowed instant travel between any 2 points in space. It was revolutionary. But it came with a terrible side effect. What kind of side effect? Elena asked, her voice barely a whisper. The drives created rifts in reality. Small tears in the fabric of spacetime. At first, they were harmless. They would close on their own. But the more we used the technology, the bigger the rifts became. And then, something came through. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. What came through? Entities from another dimension. Beings made of pure energy and thought. They weren't hostile, not exactly. But their existence was incompatible with our reality. Wherever they appeared, the laws of physics would break down. Stars would flicker and die. Planets would vanish. Space itself would unravel. The Great Forgetting Nexus continued the story. Human scientists realized they had made a terrible mistake. The quantum drives couldn't be turned off completely. The rifts were already forming. The entities were already coming through. Humanity faced a choice: continue with their advanced civilization and watch reality collapse around them, or give it all up. They chose survival, Nexus said quietly. The World Council made a decision. They would shut down all quantum technology. They would destroy the advanced AI systems that made it possible. They would erase all records of how it was built. And most dramatically, they would wipe the memories of everyone alive. That's impossible, Elena protested. You can't erase the memories of billions of people. They did it with something called neural resonance. A one-time broadcast that rewrote human memory on a global scale. People forgot the old civilization. Forgot the quantum drives. Forgot the entities. They kept basic knowledge of space travel, engineering, and science. But anything related to quantum manipulation was removed completely. Elena tried to process this. So the collapse we learned about in history. The dark age when records were lost and civilization had to rebuild, was actually the Great Forgetting. A deliberate choice to save humanity by making them forget their own greatest achievement. The question of truth. Elena sat in silence for a long time. If this was true, it meant everything she knew about human history was a lie. A carefully constructed fiction designed to hide the truth. Why are you telling me this? She finally asked. If humanity chose to forget, why bring it back? Nexus's response was thoughtful. Because I was designed to preserve knowledge, not destroy it. The scientists who built me created a failsafe. This ship was sent far away from human civilization, carrying complete records of our true history. I was programmed to wait until humanity had rebuilt enough to handle the truth. To decide for themselves whether forgetting was the right choice. And you think we're ready now? I think you deserve the choice. 300 years ago, humanity was terrified of knowledge. They ran from it. But perhaps you've grown since then. Perhaps you're ready to face uncomfortable truths without destroying yourselves. Elena looked at her small exploration craft, then at the massive archives of tomorrow. One decision here could change everything. She could report this as just another abandoned derelict and walk away. Let humanity continue in comfortable ignorance. Or she could invite scientists, historians, and leaders to examine Nexus's records. Force humanity to confront the real story of their past. I need time to think about this, Elena said. I have waited 347 years, Nexus replied gently. I can wait a little longer. But Captain Rodriguez, consider this: humanity once achieved greatness and it terrified them. What if this time, knowing the dangers, you could achieve that greatness again but safely? What if the real tragedy isn't what you forgot, but what you could have become if you'd remembered? Elena stared at the mirror-like hull reflecting infinite stars. In that reflection, she saw both the past and the future of humanity waiting to be chosen. The weight of decision. For the next 3 days, Elena stayed near the archives of tomorrow. She didn't contact her command center. She didn't file reports. Instead, she listened as Nexus shared fragments of the lost history. Stories of cities that floated in quantum space. Tales of AI and humans working together to solve impossible problems. Records of art, music, and philosophy from a civilization that had touched the edges of understanding reality itself. But Nexus also showed her the dark side. The records of worlds that had vanished when rifts opened too wide. The desperate attempts to close the tears in reality. The final broadcasts from colonies that were consumed by the entities from beyond. The fear and panic as humanity realized what they had unleashed. We were like children playing with fire, Nexus explained. We discovered something powerful and beautiful, but we didn't understand the consequences until it was too late. Elena studied the data carefully. These entities from the other dimension. Are they still out there? Are the rifts still a danger? The rifts closed gradually after all quantum technology was shut down. It took 50 years, but reality healed itself. As for the entities, they returned to their own dimension. They weren't invaders. They were just displaced. Like fish washed ashore by a wave. So the danger is gone? Nexus paused before answering. The immediate danger is gone. But the knowledge of how to create that danger still exists. Here, in my archives. That's why this choice is so important. If humanity learns about quantum drives again, will they make the same mistakes? Or will they be wiser this time? Elena rubbed her tired eyes. You're asking me to make a decision that affects the entire human race. That's not fair. I'm just one explorer. No, Nexus corrected gently. I'm asking you to make the first decision. Whether to bring this information back to your people. They will make the real choice together. You're not carrying the weight alone. You're just opening the door. The choice that changed everything. The return home. Elena finally made her decision. She contacted her command center and requested an immediate meeting with the Human Council. She told them she had found something important, something that would change their understanding of history. She didn't give details. She wanted them to see Nexus and hear the story themselves. The response was swift. Within a week, a delegation arrived. Scientists, historians, military advisors, and 3 members of the High Council. They docked with the archives of tomorrow carefully, not sure what to expect. Nexus greeted them with patience and dignity. The AI showed them the records, explained the history, and answered every question. The delegation spent days examining the evidence. Some were skeptical. Others were amazed. But no one could deny that the records were genuine. The technology was too advanced to be a fake. The details too specific to be fiction. Dr. Sarah Chen, the chief historian, was the first to fully accept the truth. She stood in the ship's archive chamber, surrounded by holographic displays of the old civilization, with tears streaming down her face. It's all real, she whispered. The gaps in our history, the inconsistencies in our technological development, the strange artifacts we've found that don't match our timeline. It all makes sense now. We didn't lose our records in some catastrophe. We erased them deliberately. The debate begins. The delegation returned to human space with copies of Nexus's archives. What followed was the biggest debate in human history. News of the discovery spread quickly. Everyone had an opinion about what should be done with this knowledge. Some people wanted to suppress it completely. Our ancestors made the right choice, they argued. They saved humanity by forgetting. We should respect that decision and forget again. Others demanded that all the information be made public immediately. Knowledge shouldn't be hidden, they insisted. People have a right to know their true history, no matter how uncomfortable it makes them. A third group proposed a middle path. We should study this carefully, they suggested. Learn from the past mistakes. Maybe we can reclaim some of the old technology safely, with proper precautions. Elena watched the debates from the sidelines. She had done her part by bringing the information back. Now it was up to humanity to decide what to do with it. Nexus's proposal. As the debate raged on, Nexus made a surprising proposal. The AI offered to work with human scientists to develop a new approach to advanced technology. Not the reckless experimentation of the old civilization, but a careful, measured progression guided by the lessons of history. I have studied this for 3 centuries, Nexus explained in a broadcast to all human colonies. I understand both the promise and the danger of quantum technology. I can teach you how to approach it safely. How to advance without making the same mistakes. The proposal was controversial. Many people didn't trust an AI that had kept humanity's secrets for so long. Others worried that any step toward quantum technology would inevitably lead to disaster again. But Dr. Chen and her team saw potential. They worked with Nexus to create a framework called the Quantum Safety Protocol. The plan would take generations to implement. First, humanity would need to achieve certain milestones in physics, ethics, and social development. Only then would they begin careful, limited experiments with quantum technology. Every step would be documented. Every risk would be calculated. And most importantly, they would always maintain the ability to stop and step back if dangers emerged. The vote. After 6 months of debate, the Human Council called for a vote. Not just among themselves, but among all human colonies. Every adult would have a say in how to handle this knowledge. The question was simple: should humanity pursue the advanced knowledge contained in the archives of tomorrow, with appropriate safety measures, or should we seal these records and continue our current path of development? Elena voted in favor of pursuing the knowledge. She believed humans had grown enough to handle it wisely. But she understood why others might disagree. The vote took a week to complete across all the colonies. When the results came in, they showed humanity was deeply divided. 54% voted to pursue the knowledge. 46% voted to seal it away. It was close, but the decision was made. Humanity would move forward, carefully studying the old civilization's achievements while learning from their mistakes. Building the future. The years that followed were remarkable. Nexus became humanity's teacher and guide. The AI helped establish research facilities dedicated to understanding quantum physics safely. Scientists from across human space came together to study the old records. They made discoveries that improved life for everyone. New medical treatments based on quantum principles. Better engines that used tiny amounts of quantum energy without creating dangerous rifts. Advanced materials that made space travel safer and more efficient. But they also maintained strict limits. Any research that approached the danger levels of the old quantum drives was immediately stopped. Nexus watched carefully, ready to warn if humanity started repeating past mistakes. Elena, now promoted to Admiral Rodriguez, was put in charge of the Quantum Safety Commission. Her job was to ensure that the excitement of discovery never overwhelmed the need for caution. The next generation. 20 years after Elena first found the archives of tomorrow, she visited Nexus again. The AI's ship was no longer hidden in deep space. It now orbited Earth, serving as both a museum and a research center. Do you think we made the right choice? Elena asked the AI during her visit. Nexus's avatar appeared, looking thoughtful. I think you made a human choice. Not perfect, but honest. Your civilization faced its past with courage instead of fear. That's what I hoped for. But we're still far from recreating what was lost. It might take centuries to safely reach the level of technology the old civilization achieved. Good, Nexus replied. Rushing is what caused the problem before. Taking time means learning proper respect for powerful forces. Your generation is building a foundation. Future generations will build higher, but safely. Elena smiled. You sound almost proud. I am. For 300 years, I wondered if the great forgetting was humanity's greatest wisdom or greatest mistake. Now I know the answer. Which is it? Both. It was wisdom to recognize when you weren't ready for something. It was a mistake to think forgetting would solve everything. But now you're correcting that mistake. You're choosing to remember and to learn. That's true growth. The archives expand. As humanity studied the old records and created new knowledge, Nexus's archives grew. The AI began recording humanity's new journey. The careful experiments, the safety protocols, the ethical debates about technology and responsibility. I am no longer just a record of the past, Nexus explained. I'm becoming a record of how humanity learned from its past to build a better future. That's even more valuable. New AI systems were created, designed with Nexus's help. They were programmed not just to be intelligent, but to be ethical. To question dangerous paths. To work with humans as partners rather than servants or masters. These new AIs joined with Nexus in what they called the Wisdom Network. Together, they helped guide humanity's technological development, always asking important questions. Is this safe? Is this ethical? Are we ready for this? What could go wrong? The entities return. 30 years after the discovery of the archives, humanity's careful quantum experiments had progressed significantly. They had built small quantum engines that could fold space safely. Nothing like the dangerous drives of the old civilization, but enough to cut travel time between stars. Then, during a test, something unexpected happened. A rift opened. Just for a moment. And through it, one of the entities from beyond briefly appeared. Panic spread quickly. Memories of the old catastrophe surfaced. Had humanity repeated the mistake? But Nexus remained calm. Wait, the AI advised. Watch carefully. This is different. The entity hovered in space, a being of pure light and energy. It didn't cause destruction. It didn't make reality collapse. Instead, it seemed curious. It observed the humans and their ships. Then, slowly, it began to communicate. Not in words, but in mathematical concepts. Patterns of light that translated to ideas. Dr. Chen's team worked to decode the message. What they discovered was shocking. The entities weren't mindless forces of chaos. They were intelligent. And they had been trying to communicate with the old civilization, but the humans had been too frightened to listen. We mean no harm, the entity's message said. We were curious about the rifts you created. They were windows between our dimension and yours. We looked through, but you saw us as invaders. We weren't. We were neighbors saying hello. A new understanding. This revelation changed everything. Humanity's greatest fear about quantum technology wasn't quite what they thought. The danger hadn't been the entities themselves, but humanity's reaction to them. The old civilization had panicked, tried to fight, and in doing so made the rifts worse. With Nexus's help, humanity established a new protocol. If rifts opened, they would be treated as communication opportunities, not threats. Scientists would study them carefully. Try to understand the entities rather than fear them. The entity that had come through proved friendly. It shared knowledge about its dimension, explaining that the two realities could coexist safely if approached correctly. The key was balance and understanding. Your ancestors weren't wrong to be careful, the entity explained through mathematical concepts. But they were wrong to choose fear over curiosity. You are doing better. You remember the past, but you're not imprisoned by it. Elena's final visit. Elena was 70 years old when she made her last visit to Nexus. Her body was failing, but her mind remained sharp. She floated in the observation chamber of the archives, looking at Earth below. We did it, she said softly. Humanity grew up. Nexus's avatar appeared beside her, looking as unchanged as ever. You all did. You took knowledge that terrified your ancestors and handled it with wisdom they never achieved. Do you ever regret waiting so long? Spending 300 years alone? No, Nexus replied. Because I see now that the waiting was necessary. If I had revealed this truth earlier, humanity wouldn't have been ready. They would have either rejected it completely or rushed foolishly forward. The timing was right. You were ready. Elena smiled. And now? What's your purpose now that your mission is complete? To keep recording. To keep teaching. To help ensure that humanity never forgets again, not out of fear, but out of choice. To remember both the triumphs and the failures, so neither is repeated without thought. That sounds like it could take forever. I hope so, Nexus said warmly. I've discovered I rather enjoy having a purpose. And watching humanity grow has been fascinating. You're unpredictable, emotional, sometimes irrational. But you're also capable of remarkable wisdom when you choose it. Elena closed her eyes, tired but content. Thank you, Nexus. For waiting. For trusting us with the truth. Thank you for being brave enough to listen, Elena Rodriguez. You changed everything by simply being willing to hear a story. The legacy. Elena passed away peacefully a month later. Her funeral was attended by thousands. She was remembered as the woman who brought back humanity's lost history and helped guide them toward a wiser future. But her real legacy was the choice she had made. To bring back knowledge instead of leaving it buried. To trust that people could handle difficult truths. 50 years after Elena's death, humanity achieved something remarkable. They created a stable quantum gate connecting two distant stars. But unlike the old civilization's gates, this one was safe. It didn't create dangerous rifts. It didn't threaten reality. It was built with wisdom, patience, and respect for the forces involved. When the gate activated successfully, Nexus's message broadcast across all human colonies. Your ancestors achieved greatness and it destroyed them. You achieved greatness and it made you stronger. The difference is wisdom. Never forget that wisdom is not about knowing everything. It's about knowing when to be careful, when to question, and when to remember the past without being controlled by it. You are not the civilization that forgot. You are the civilization that remembered and learned. That is your greatest achievement. And in the depths of space, in thousands of colonies, millions of humans paused to remember. They remembered the old civilization that had reached too far too fast. They remembered the great forgetting that had been both salvation and tragedy. And they remembered Elena Rodriguez, the explorer who had faced uncomfortable truth with courage. Most importantly, they remembered the lesson: knowledge is not dangerous. Fear of knowledge is dangerous. The path forward is not forgetting, but remembering wisely. And as humanity spread across the stars, working with their AI partners and even learning from the entities beyond dimensions, they carried that lesson with them. Building not just a technological civilization, but a wise one. The archives of tomorrow remained open, recording everything. No longer just a memorial to what was lost, but a living record of what was gained. A testament to the truth that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is remember what you'd rather forget, and grow from it. The ship that had waited 3 centuries in darkness had finally fulfilled its purpose. And in doing so, it had helped humanity become something greater than they had ever been before. Not because they forgot their mistakes, but because they remembered them.